So shall we start? So what we discussed in the last session. So we started Advanced Java. We discussed the architecture of web architecture, and we started JDBC. Okay. So different types of drivers we discussed. Out of 4 drivers, theme driver is the best one. Okay. So you get a lot of native features. You will get. Okay. In the industry also, most widely used driver is theme driver only. Okay. So once again, yesterday we stuck up with configuring the class path and all. So to avoid that one, today's session I am using IDE. Of course, in the industry we use IDE only. Either we use Eclipse or MyEclipse, JDeveloper, NetBeans. We have different IDEs are there. Okay. So here, code will not change. The code will not change if you use IDE or if you use manual. Okay. Some environment. Okay. So here I am using Eclipse for developing this JDBC applications as well as our next Advanced Java applications. I am using Eclipse. Generally, MyEclipse is a preferred one. MyEclipse is a preferred one if you want to develop Java applications. Of course, even you can use Eclipse also you can use. Okay. So once again, I'll write our yesterday's example. Okay, we'll see the output. So if you want to create a Java project, if you want to create a Java project, select File. You will not find this Java. Select Java. Create a Java project. Next. So specify the project name. Let us take my project name is DB test is a project name. What is the project name? DB test. So here, select use default JRE. Select the third option, default JRE. Okay. Next and finish. So we created on Java project. We created called DB test. So in this Java project, I think everyone is having this Eclipse software. Do you have Eclipse? So in SRC, so create one class. Select SRC. Right click on SRC. Create a class. Let's take my class name is. So DB test is a class name. So just tell me, yesterday I given some code, right? How to communicate with the Oracle database. Okay. So what is the first statement? So there are some steps. There are some steps to connect a database. Okay. What is the first step? We had to get a connection to the database server. How to get the connection? So before going to get the connection object, we had to instantiate the database driver. We had to instantiate. So we are communicating with the Oracle database. So class dot for name. So specify the class name. What is the Oracle driver class name? Oracle dot JDBC dot driver dot Oracle driver. Next. This logic will give you an exception. Put the logic inside the try catch. Next. So what is the next one? We had to get a connection object. We instantiated the driver object. Next we had to get the connection object. See here, this connection class is available in how many packages? com.sun.corba, next com.sun.jnda, Java SQL, next sun.rmi.transport. There are different packages are there. In different packages we have this connection class. So which one we have to import? Java.SQL. Okay, we have to import this Java.SQL. Connection con is equals to like driver manager. What is the method name? Get connection. So here we have to specify to get the connection from a database. We have to specify few properties. The first one is a protocol. We have to specify JDBC colon JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @ localhost colon 1521 the version. What is the database username and what is the database password? Okay. So you got the data. With this statement, you will get a connection. You will get the connection object. You will get next. So first, if you want to perform any operations, if you want to perform any SQL operations, whatever it may be, it may be reading operation or writing operation or updation or any operation. If you want to perform on the database, we have to create which object? Statement object we have to create. Convert create statement. Okay. So here also problem with imports. When you select this one, so this statement is also available in different packages. We have to import java.sql.statement. Next. So to execute the queries, the statement object is having two methods. It is having three methods. One is execute query, execute update, and execute method. So here the table is already there. I want to insert some data into a table. Execute query method is only for reading the data. Execute query method for reading the data. If you want to execute the other SQL statements, if you want to execute the insert, the read, insert, the update operations, if you want to perform these things, we use execute update. You can use either execute update or execute methods. Okay, but execute update methods will give the count how many records are affected with that query. Execute method will return Boolean type. It will return you either true or false. So we use execute update. Specify the query here. How to insert the data into a table? Insert into, yesterday we created on table, right? So first you have to connect. Connected. Okay. So yesterday we created this table. We created 4 columns: employee ID, employee name, designation, and department. Okay. So insert into the table name. Next, values. Next, string we have to give a single quotes. Next, what is the designation? What is the department? Let us take. So I have to close. That's it. This is the SQL statement. So system.out.println of. Here, what is the return type of this execute update method? It's int type. Int I is equal to st.execute update. So here, system.out.println of, I am printing I. So just it will print you, to print the count, how many records are affected. Okay. So shall we test this one? Okay. So but before going to test this application, you have to specify. So where is this Oracle driver and all these things are available? The Oracle people will provide you some API, right? The Oracle people will provide you some API. So if you are using Oracle, Oracle provide you some API. If you are using MySQL, MySQL will provide you some API. So you have to specify to the compiler, I am using this oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver class. This class is available in so and so place. How to specify that one? Generally we will specify by using class path, we will specify. So, but here we are using IDE, right? We are using some IDE we are using. So if you want to specify, or if you want to add some jar files, if you want to add some external jar files, if you want to add, select properties here. In properties, select Java build path. Properties, select what? Java build path. In Java build path, select libraries here. Select libraries. Null jars. Add external jars for this project. Where is that Oracle? In the C drive, if you are using Oracle XC, and here app Oracle product version server, you will get a folder called JDBC. In JDBC library, so we need this OJDBC14.jar. This OJDBC14.jar contains the driver classes and all. So you had to run as Java application. So if everything is perfect, so how many records are affected? We got one, meaning one record is inserted in the database. Okay. So if you want to see, select start from. So one record is inserted in the database. Employee ID is 123. Employee name is Mahesh. Designation is PL, and the department. Okay. So one record is inserted in the database. For example, once again, if you run this one, what will happen? Run as Java application. So you'll get one more record. You'll get here because how many records are there? 2 records, because we are not specified any primary key, right? Correct or not? It will accept the duplicates. Okay. So yesterday code is perfect, but we are unable to set this. We are unable to set that class path from this bracket, right? The C, but we are using ID here, so ID will take care of it. So here, yesterday I explained there are 3 types of statements are there. One is normal statement object, second one is what? Prepared statement object. Statement and prepared statement. So the difference between statement and prepared statement is, for example here, I want to insert, for example, 10 columns are there in the database. How many columns? 10 columns. Like this, 1, 2, 3, Mahesh, here, mobile, like how many columns? 10 columns. If you have 10 columns, it's very difficult to specify like this or not in a single course. Only are having 3 things. For example, if you want to insert 50 columns at that time, it's very difficult to specify the data in a single course. So to avoid this one, we use what? Prepared statement. What is the next one? Prepared statement. So here, in case of this statement object, con dot, so here, in case of this statement, what is the next one? Prepared statement. Prepared statement is equals to con dot, in case of create statement, the connection object dot prepared statement. So you had to specify the query initially only. Initially only we had to specify the query. So here, the prepared statement, initially only we had to specify the query here. Insert into employee values, but will not specify values. In place of values, will specify what? Question mark will specify. So previously we used the statement object we used. Now we are using what? The prepared statement. In the prepared statement, we will not specify data. We will specify what? The question marks we specify. So next you have to specify what is the question mark value you have to specify here. So before going to call the execute update method or execute method, so what is this question mark value you have to specify? I want to take these things from command line arguments, s of 0 or args of 0. Args of 0, next. But here it is giving an error. What is that error? We given setint 0 comma args of 0. What is the meaning here? Actually we had to pass integer value, we had to pass for this setint method, but what we are passing? We are passing a string value we are passing. So then we had to convert this. We had to convert this string into what? Integer. Integer dot parseInt of args 0. Okay. So here next we had to write int I is equals to same. Now we had to call the either execute update method or execute method. Execute update. That's it. Okay. So we'll test application. DB test run as Java application. So in the command line arguments, we had to pass the values we had to pass. Let us take 1 to 5. So we'll do one thing. In place of this command line arguments, we use what? What is another approach to take input? Scanner of system.in. System.in dot next. Next line or read line? Next line. So DB test run as Android, run as Java application. We have to give what is the employee ID, one second. In the cache block we will call e.print stack trace, so that if you get any exception, this exception block is going to be called. As per my expectation, index is not starts with 0. Okay. Actually, we are getting an exception. See, what is the exception? Invalid column index. Okay. What is the exception? This is invalid column index. It is saying. So meaning here, index will not start with 0. Of course, for prepared statement is going to start with, the index is going to start with 1. Okay. So it does application. DB test run as Java application. 2 5 location. The data is inserted in the database. So three records are inserted, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and one more record now inserted, 1, 2, 5, location, manager, and admin. Okay. So this is how to insert the data into the database. So any queries after now? Based on this, you can use command line arguments also. You can use. Problem is not the command line arguments or the system dot. The problem is what? The events. Okay. Second. What is the complete source code? Is that entire code? So if you want to change from Oracle database to MySQL server or MySQL, which one you had to change? Only the class name you had to change, and what is this you had to change? This get connection you had to change. Only these two statements had to change. And what is a jar file? We added one jar file, right? OJDBC1.jar. So that jar file also we had to change. Okay. So any doubts goes up to this? So are you clear? What is the difference between statement and prepared statement? Okay. So mainly we use prepared statement and statement of. Because in statement, for example, I have n number of columns, and then it's very difficult to specify a single quotes and all. If you use prepared statement, you can give question marks, and later you can insert the values based on the index. So this is for inserting the data. Okay. So if, like this, if you want to perform, you can perform other operations also. For example, updating the data and deleting the data. It's completed. So next we'll see how to delete one particular record. We'll see. So what is the query for delete? What is the query for delete? In place of this prepared statement, we'll replace this SQL statement. We'll replace. Okay. So prepared statement, the double quotes. What is the query? So delete from employee where EID is equal to question mark given. So dynamically I will specify the value. Delete from employee where employee ID is equal to question mark. That question mark value we have to specify in the next line. It's integer data only, right? The employee ID is an integer type only. So statement dot set int of 1. So user is going to give the value which record he wants to delete. So he will give the value dynamically. Okay. So deleted. If you get 0, there is no any records with the specified employee ID. Okay. Just only I replace the SQL statement. I replace, that's it. Delete from employee where employee ID is equal to question mark. So we'll test the application. DB test. Run as Java application. So here we had to give which record you want to delete, specify here. I given 1, 2, 3. We got, why you got 2 here? Because we had 2 records with 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now if you see in the database, so I have only 1 record, that is 125 Lokesh, manager and admin. Okay. So like you can perform other operations also, you can perform like you can update operation, you can alter, you can perform other operations also you can perform by using this statement object or prepared statement object. Okay. So now we see how to insert the data. So next we'll see how to read the data from the database. అర్థమవుతుందా బాస్? క్వశ్చన్ మార్క్ పేజెస్ కనిపిస్తుంటే కొంచెం లేదు కదా, అర్థమవుతుంది కదా? So here by using this execute update method or the execute method which is used to perform these operations like creating, inserting, updating and these things. For example, I want to read the data from the database. So if you want to read the data from the database, what is the method? In place of this execute update method, execute query method we had to use. We can use same prepared statement object only we can use. But in place of execute update method we used what? Execute query method we used. But here the return type of this execute query method is what? The return type of this execute query method is a result type. Okay. So here in place of this int I, so we have to import this result set. The return type of this execute query method, what is the return type? It's a result set. So it may contain n number of records, right? For example, I'll write one query, select star from employee where employee is equal to 1, 2, 3. Previously we have how many records with 1, 2, 3? 2 records. So like it may contain n number of records. Correct or not? Okay. So here you'll get all the records. How many records you got with your query? You'll get all the records. That all the records are stored into one object now. What is that object? Result set. Okay, we stored in one result set object we stored. I want to know whether I got the data or not. I return on statement was select star from employee where employee is equal to 1 to 6. Let us take I don't know whether data is available with 1 to 6 or not. So I want to know if the data is available, read the data. The data is not available, you cannot read it. Data is available, just read the data. So how to know that whether data is available or not? The result set object or result set is the another name for this result set is cursor. What is another name for this result set? Cursor. Have you remembered we discussed cursors concept in core Java? In our core Java last classes we discussed about cursors in util package. Iterator, next. List iterator, next. Enumeration. So we discussed these cursors. So this result set is also comes under one of the cursor. Okay. So to read the data, we have a method called rs.next. What is the method name? rs.next. This next method will tell you whether the data is available in the result set or not. Okay. So if you use this while, if you put this logic in a if statement, how many times this if statement is going to be called? Only once. But we don't know how many records are available in the result set. So that's why we'll write what? While. While rs.next, if record is available, so enter into the loop. So I want to get the data from that record. I want to get the data from a row. Okay, initially the result set object is location at -1. Initially the result set location is what? -1. We return some query, right? We return some statement to return. If you got the data, you get number of rows, right? 0 row, first row, second row, you get some rows, right? When you call rs.next, the cursor point comes from minus position, -1 to 0 position. The cursor point will comes from -1 to 0 position to tell you whether the data is available in the 0 position or not. Who will tell that one? rs.next. So now the cursor point is at 0, first 0. So in that regard, it may contain n number of columns, right? It may contain n number of columns. In our table, how many columns are there? 4 columns. Employee ID, name, resignation, and department. So here, you can read the data from a particular table or from a particular row by specifying the column index or by specifying the column name. You can read the data from a particular row by specifying the column index or by specifying the column name. For example, here system.out.println. So rs dot, there is a method called get int of, see here, you can specify either column index you can specify or you can specify what? The column name you can specify. This column index is going to start with 0. Meaning the employee ID, what is the index of employee ID? 0. Employee name index is 1, 2, 3. Okay. You can specify the get int of, because we specify it's a number type, right? Get int of 0 in /t. Just give one tab space. Then after that rs dot get string of 1. Okay, sorry. Just we are printing that column values we are printing. And it's a while loop, right? Before we need to terminate the loop, what will you do? Check the condition again. Initially the cursor point is -1. When you call rs.next, it comes to 0 position. The records are available in this 0 position to print the values. Okay. Next, before we need to terminate the loop, once again we check the condition. Again we check the condition. rs.next. So next the cursor point comes to next position, 1 position. In that 1 position, it will check whether the records are available or not. Records are available. This method will return it true. Otherwise, it will return false. Record is available. Enter into the block. Print the value. Example: how many records are available? The printing as this loop is going to be repeat, and we will get the values will get. Okay. So we'll test this one. So DB test run as Java application. Query delete. Oh, sorry. Statement margin. Select start from employee where employee ID is equal to question mark. So here we have only one record, that is 125. Why? Sorry. Index confirm. Always confused. The index starts with 0, the index starts with 1. Okay. So yesterday it is starting with 0, here it is starting with 1. Okay. So this is how to insert the data and how to read the data from database by using JDBC. So statement object we discussed, previous statement object also we discussed. Third one is a callable statement. This callable statement which is used to execute the stored procedures. This callable statement which is used to execute what? The stored procedures. We will discuss that stored procedures concept. Initially, sorry clear up to this, how to insert the data and how to read the data. You know up to this one. I think already few people knows this one at college level only. Correct or not? So what we learned some concepts in core Java here. Correct or not? We learned different access modifiers, access specifiers. We discussed some concepts like interfaces, abstract classes. Correct or not? Okay. So with all these concepts, we'll develop an application. And here we are going to use some design patterns here called DAO, data access object, DTO, data transfer object. Okay. So those are very, very important for your next feature. These concepts I hope you learned at your college level only. Okay, even a small institute people also can tell this one. Correct or not? Okay, you have to identify the difference, right, between a real-time person and the non-real-time person. So here we'll develop an application. We'll develop with all these concepts, whatever we learn in core Java. Okay, so let us take. Initially, we'll take only two operations. Let us take. I want to store some students' details first, because these two examples easily you can understand, the students example and employees example, right? So, and you are also you feel more comfortable with two things. Okay. So my requirement is I want to store some students' details. I want to store. I want to insert some data and I want to read some data from the students table. Okay. So here we'll create a project. We'll create. So file, a new select create a Java project. My application is students. So what is the project name? Students app is a project name. Select finish. So this is a project. First in this project, what we'll do is, so first identify what are the operations you want to perform. Let us take initially I want to perform how many operations? 2 operations I want to perform. What are the 2 operations? Insert the data into database and read. Insert and read the data from the database. So for this one, what I will do is, I will create an interface. Let us take I am a lead. I am a project lead. Let us take first I will identify what are the client function, what is the client is expecting. Okay. So first I will create one interface, not the class I am creating. I am creating what? One interface I am creating. Okay. Let us take students app. Let us take modules or functionalities like that. Students app modules. Okay. So here it's an interface, right? What interface contains? It contains only abstract methods. So here we'll create 2 abstract methods. We'll create here public insert operation. Are you expecting any return type while it is inserting? Are you expecting anything while you are inserting the data into database? How many records are inserted? So I want to know here public int. So let us take insert student data. Public int insert student data. Of course, even if you don't specify this public also, by default in the interface, every method is what? Public abstract. This is one module. Okay. Let us take one more thing is, let us take int. Sorry. Next operation is read student data. This is another one. Insert student data, and what is the next one? Read student data. So listen carefully, try to understand. What is the return type of this read student data method? Result set. What is the return type? Return type is a result set. So import this result set. So we created on interface. Interface contains only abstract methods. It doesn't contain any implementation. Okay. So next, this is one interface I created. So now what I will do is I will submit, or I will give this interface to my one of the developer, Shiva. Let's do implement this. Which one? The student app modules. I'll give this interface to my team person. What he has to do? He has to provide the implementation for this insert student data as well as read students data. Okay. So what my team member will do is, so here he will create one class. He will create. Okay. And one more thing. For this insert student data, we had to submit what is the data you want to insert. You had to specify or not. Correct or not, boss? So which data you want to insert the data into database, you had to specify here. So generally previously what we specified, directly we given data 1, 2, 3. Next. Name we given. Next. Designation. Okay. So Java will not prefer to give the data like that. If you want to give some data, create one separate object. Generally we call that one is a data transfer object. Data transfer object. So whatever the data you want to insert or whatever the data you want to transfer, for that data create one separate class. మీరు కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవుతారంటే ఇక్కడే స్టాప్ చేద్దాం బాస్. డిస్కస్ అదర్ థింగ్. కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవుతారా? కన్ఫ్యూజ్ అవ్వరా? అవరు కదా? ఓకే. బికాస్ this is an important one. You have to understand. Okay. జావాలో ఆబ్జెక్ట్ అంటే ఏంటో తెలిస్తే 50% of the Java you know. Okay, first try to understand what is that object. When you will understand that object, if you do more practice, then only you will understand what is in by object, what is in by class, what is in by method, and what is in by variable. Okay, nursery LKG classes అయిపోయినాయి course. You are the first class now. Correct or not? Okay, so here directly you cannot give the parameters. Directly you cannot give the parameters. If you want to give, or if you want to transfer some data, Java is preferred to create one separate class. Okay, so let us take here, we'll create one separate class, we'll create new class. So here my class name is student. What is the class name? Student is a class name. In this student class, whatever the data you want to insert, so create some variables. The first one is int, the student ID, next student name, what is the next one? Designation, department. And better practice, always apply for variables and methods, always apply with private access modifier. Okay, so now for this class, generally we call this class is a POJO class. What is the class? POJO class. POJO is termed as plain old Java object. POJO is termed as what? Plain old Java object. If a class is not implementing any interface, or if the class is not extending any class, then the class is called as a POJO class. The class is not extending any other class, and if the class is not providing any implementation for another interface, then the class is called as what? POJO class. So now this class is not extending any other classes, and this class is not implementing any other interfaces. So it is a POJO class. So directly you can insert the data for the SID, name, designation, and department. But for inserting the data and for reading the data, the best practice is create setter methods and getter methods. So for all these things, the SID, name, designation, and department, create setter methods and the getter methods. How to create the setter methods and getter methods for this? So here, if you are using IDE, select source option. In source, we have an option called generate setters and getters. Select generate setters and getters. Just select all these things. Automatically we will get the setter methods and the getter methods. Now we created, this is called as a POJO, as well as now it is a transfer object. Data transfer object. If you want to transfer some data, previously directly we specified 1, 2, 3, Mahesh directly we specified. Now we are not transferring the data directly. We are creating one object we are creating. We'll put the data into that object, will transfer that object. That is called as data. Are you writing this class? Okay. If you want to insert some data in database, directly the parameters. Directly you can specify some input parameters for this 1, 2, 3, Mahesh. Directly you can insert the data. But Java will not prefer that one. Beginner is okay, fine. Okay, so Java is not preferred. Insert the data like if you want to transfer some data, better create one class, create one object, put the data into that object, transfer that object over the net. Okay, so here that's why to insert the data we created one class. We created. What is the class? Student. So whatever the values you want to maintain in student, create separate variables. Okay. To insert the data and to read the data from these variables, we created setter methods and getter methods. For example, here I want to insert some data into this SID. How to insert the data into this SID? We'll call this method the student student object or set I said. Get the data student object or get yes, we'll get that. Yes. Next. Just only write one thing, that's it. SID or SName, only write one setter method and one getter method. Remaining things are same. Lights on just right. And a cinema theater కూర్చుంటారు boss light లేకుండా. Generally my videos full of lighting. So పక్క నుంచి ఇటు నుంచి కొంత లైట్ పెట్టుకొని ఉంటారు, పైనుంచి లైట్స్ ఉంటాయి. సో ఐ ఫీల్ సినిమా హీరో ఎట్ దట్ టైం. The cameraman will say, sir, everything is ready, sir. You can start. So I'll start. I said only write one method, that's it. Okay? One setter method and one getter method. Remaining things are same. Okay? So now insert for this method, what is the input parameter? Student object is the input parameter. What is the input parameter? Student object is the input parameter. Return type also. It's not a result set object. We change the return type of this one. The result set return type of this read student data method is. What is the return type of this method? It's a student. But you will get only one student record or multiple student records you will get. Multiple student record you will get. So how to specify multiple records? Come on boss, forgot about array. What is the alternative for arrays? Collection. Okay. So here we will specify the return type of this method is array list of what? Student. If you are getting one single record, use a student object. We'll get multiple records, right? So that's why we created a array list we created. So here it is asking change the workspace compilance and JRE to 1.5. We are using one concept, right? What is the concept name? Generics concept we are using here, correct or not? This generics concept came in Java from Java 1.5 version. So maybe this compiler version is lower than Java 1.5. How to change the Java compiler version for this Eclipse? Select properties. Here you will get Java compiler. See what is the default version we are having here. 1.4. We had to change this to 1.6. What we created? We created one interface we created, that's it. We created what? One interface we created. Up to now, do you have any doubts, boss? Everything is doubt? Nothing goes. Coding correct? And directly insert option perform directly reading operation perform correct? So no one will give if that is your code and that is your project. Correct? Me project me code అనుకోండి, మీరు ఎలా కోడ్ రాస్తున్నా మీ ఇష్టం, ఎందుకంటే that is your project and your code. మీరు వేరే వాళ్ళకి రాసినప్పుడు ఏంటంటే you have to follow some rules. Correct? Some experts will give some instructions and they will give some rules. You have to follow that. Rules you have to follow. One of the rule for writing project is, if you have any modules, first you have to create one interface. You have to create one interface. First, identify what are the modules you are having, or what are the functionalities you are having. First, create one interface. So that's why we created one interface. We created. In this interface, I want to perform how many operations? 2 operations. One is insert data, another one is read data. For inserting data, we have to specify few input parameters, right? What is the data we want to insert first? Correct? So directly you can specify the input parameters, but that is not the right output. If you want to insert some data, you have to create one object, and you have to give that object as the input parameter. For reading the data also, we given one method, read student data. What is the return type of this method? Arrays, because you get multiple student arrays. Okay. Is it necessary passing any input parameter for this? For example, I want to read the student data whose student ID is equal to 1, 2, 3. What do you have to pass in that line? ID. You have to pass it. So what is the input parameter for this method? What is the need to do one thing? I want to read all the student details. No need to specify any input parameter. Okay. What you can do with interface? Nothing. Interface just which is used to describe it. Interface. Next, I told you, right? I'll identify modules and functionalities. I will create interfaces. Next, I will give the interface to one of my team member. What the person has to do? He has to provide the implementation for that interface. So here, create one class. Let us take student app modules IMPL. I am creating an implementation class for the interface. You can give any name, boss. I am giving students app modules IMPL. This class has to implement what? Implements student app modules. So here it's an interface, right? When you are providing the implementation for the interface in this class, you have to provide the implementation for 2 methods: add unimplemented methods. This interface contains how many methods? 2 methods. Insert student data. Another is how many methods? 2 methods. What are the 2 methods? Insert student data, and another one is read student. Insert student data and read student data. Now he has to write that logic. Which logic he has to write? Insert the data into data. Insertion operation and reading operation. First, we have to get the database connection or not? We have to get the database connection. For example, here, for inserting this database, we have to get one database connection object, and for reading also, we have to get one more database connection object. If we take web applications, we take for at a time, let us say 1000 members are using your database. 1000 members are accessing your page first. How many database objects will you create? 1000 database objects, right? Correct? See, I want to avoid that. I don't want to create for each and every request. I don't want to create a separate database connection object. What you can do with the database connection object was only what you can do with that connection object? Just which is used to get a connection from the database connection. Apart from that, you are doing anything. No, right? Okay. So even for 1000 requests also the same operation. Okay. So here you need to create 1000 separate objects. You need to create how many objects? one object is sufficient. That object can serve with 1,000 requests. So here I want to avoid every time creating a connection object. So here to get the connection and everything, we'll create one class. We'll create one separate class. I'm not writing here itself. I'm creating one separate class. I'm creating. Let us take my class name is DB connection. What is the class name? DB connection is a class name. Public class DB connection. In this DB connection method, in this DB connection class, I am creating one method called public void public static. Public static, but because why I applied static? Because of directly with the class name the user can access. Public static get DB connection is a method. What is a connection? What is the method name? Get DB connection is a method. Get DB connection is a method. The return type of this method is what? What is the return type of this method? The return type of this method is a connection object. So here we have to import the connection class. We have to import. So we'll do one thing. Globally we'll create one connection object. We'll create connection on. So here when we had to create this connection is if connection object is double equals to null. If connection object is double equals to null, then only create a new connection. If connection object is not equals to null, you need to create the object. So here, for example, I want to get the database connection object. What we do? Simply we will call database dot get connection to the call. The connection object is already created, right? This connection object will be written. Okay. So how to get this connection object? So initially we'll initialize this one with null. What is the default value for object? Null. Okay, that is a default value. So here this connection object also we have to specify with static because we are accessing inside a static, right? So here class dot for name specify here Oracle dot JDBC dot driver dot Oracle driver. So this logic will give an exception. Put the logic inside what? The try catch. Next, what is the next one? We have to get the connection object. We have to get connection. How to get the connection? Driver manager dot get connection of. We'll specify the URL JDBC colon @localhost system and manager. Next, that's it. Okay. So at return type, return what will return? The connection object. So we created one class. We created. What is a class? Class name DB connection is a class. Initially we created user is called this method get DB connection. The connection object is null. Then only to create a connection object and return the connection. Second time onwards, not create a new connection. Second time onwards, not create a new connection. So that's why, for example, if 1 lakh users are making a request, it will not create 1 lakh connection objects. How many objects it will create? Only one connection object. Okay. So here, whatever the classes we are using and whatever the interfaces we are using, same thing we use in our advanced Java. We next to discuss earlier some case here. At that time, I will not create once again. I will not write this entire logic. Directly, I will copy these properties. Okay. Papers అంటే బుక్ లోనో ఎక్కడ నోట్ చేసుకోండి, సిస్టంలో టైప్ చేయొద్దు. ఓకే, టైప్ into the database. It has to insert some data into the database. So here, to insert the data into database, first we have to get the connection object, right? To insert the data into database, what you have to get? Connection object you have to get. So how to get the connection object? Connection con is equals to ఒకసారి ఆలోచించుకొని how to get the connection object. Why we created that class? DB connection class we created, right? Why we created that class? To get the connection object only, right? So if you want to get the connection object, what do you have to use now? DB connection dot get DB connection. You will get the DB connection. So here also, for reading also we have to get the connection object, right? Correct or not? For reading also we have to get the connection object. Same method we use. But first time when you use that method, you will get a new connection object. Second time when you use db.getConnection method, it will create a new connection object. No, right? To return the existing connection object will return. Project lo for example n number of places lo call చేస్తుంటారు boss. ప్రతి చోట మీకు కొత్త కనెక్షన్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ అవ్వదు. ఆల్రెడీ ఫస్ట్ టైం మాత్రం క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది, సెకండ్ టైం నుంచి ఎగ్జిస్టింగ్ కనెక్షన్ ఆఫ్. నెక్స్ట్, వాట్ ఈస్ ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్? దిస్ ఈస్ ఇన్సర్ట్ స్టూడెంట్ data, meaning we had to write some logic to insert student data into the database. So here చెప్పాలి కదా స్టూడెంట్ డేటా ఇన్సర్ట్ చేసేప్పుడు. స్టూడెంట్ కంటైన్స్ డెసిగ్నేషన్. Go on, boss. Student, boss. So student ID we taken, student name and course. Okay. So at the time of insert the data, insert into student values, will take three things. One is for student ID, name and course. One second. Get the try catch. So we return the statement. Prepared statement is equal to insert then value I want to insert. Okay. So here, how to insert the data? The prepared statement. Object dot set you had to specify. The student object dot we created some getter methods, right? Get SID next. The second index insert get SID get SName. It's set string, right? Second thing is set string. The third index st dot get course. After inserting the data, how to execute this query? Int I is equals to your connection, your prepared statement object dot execute update is a method. Okay. DB data method will insert the data into the database. Yesterday class కు ఇద్దరు అమ్మాయిలు వచ్చారు బాస్, మార్నింగ్ క్లాస్ అంటే వేరే వాళ్ళు కూడా వచ్చారు, ఒక ఇద్దరు అమ్మాయిలు ఉన్నారు. ఫస్ట్ డే బాస్, ఫస్ట్ డే క్లాస్, నీకేం రాదనే కదా క్లాస్కి వచ్చేది, కరెక్ట్ అన్నాడు. క్లాస్ అయిపోయింది వెళ్ళిపోతున్నారు, నేను వాటర్ అవుతుందని చెప్పేసి స్టాఫ్ రూమ్కి వెళ్ళాను బాస్. మా రూమ్ ఉంటుంది కదా, మా రూమ్లోకి వెళ్ళాను అనమాట. స్టెప్స్ నుంచి వెళ్ళిపోయేటప్పుడు మాకు మాటలు వినిపిస్తాయి అనమాట, ఏం మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నారని. ఏంటి నాకేం అర్థం కావట్లే. ఒకసారి ఏమో XML అంటాడు, ఒకసారి ఏమో జావా అంటాడు. వచ్చింది ఒక క్లాస్ వచ్చారు, కరెక్ట్ ఉన్నాడు. ఎన్నిసార్లు విన్నారు వర్డ్? ఒక్కసారి విన్నారు. ఒక్కసారికి మీరు వినే పాడైతే ఈ పాటి మీరు క్లాస్ కిందకి వస్తారు. కరెక్ట్ ఉన్నాడు. ఈ పాటికలో బిల్ గేట్స్ పక్కన లేదంటే కరెక్ట్ ఉన్నాడు. ఒకసారి చెప్పిన వెంటనే విని అర్థమై నేర్చుకునే పడతాం ఇక్కడ ఎందుకు ఉంటాం బాస్. కరెక్ట్ ఉన్నాడు. సో లెసన్ ఆఫ్ ద స్టోరీ ఏంటంటే ఇక్కడ కూడా ఫస్ట్ మీకు ఏం అర్థం అవ్వకపోవచ్చు. కరెక్ట్ అన్నాడు. ఫ్రాంక్ గా చెప్తున్నా ఏమీ అర్థం అవ్వదు. బట్ ఒక బ్లాంక్ ఫేస్ ఏం చేస్తారంటే చూడండి అంతే, ఏం చేస్తున్నాడు అని చెప్పేసి అంతే. చెప్పాను కదా మా ఫ్యాకల్టీ చెప్పేటప్పుడు ఏంటంటే నాకు ఏం అర్థమయ్యేది కాదనమాట. ఈ క్లాసులు ఆబ్జెక్ట్లు అసలు ఏం అర్థమయ్యేది కాదు. వన్స్ ఇఫ్ యూ స్టార్ట్ ప్రాక్టీసింగ్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ విల్ అండర్స్టాండ్ బాస్. వై హీ క్రియేటెడ్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్, why he created database connection class, why he created implementation class, everything you will understand once if you start practicing. How many of you practicing? ఈ క్వశ్చన్ కి ఆన్సర్ ఏం చెప్తాం? ప్రాక్టీస్ చేస్తున్నారా నిజంగానే? How many of you practicing course? Hardly 1 or 2 persons. మిగతా వాళ్ళు ప్లేస్ అయ్యారా? జాబ్ వచ్చేసింది అనుకున్నారా? రైట్. So in return we had to return what? The I. Okay. So this is the first thing. When user call this method, insert student data method, it will insert the data into database and it will return the count. How many records are affected with that file? We have to write one more thing, right? What is the next one? Read the data from the database. So how to read the data from database? Here also we will create what? Prepared statement will create connection dot create con dot prepared statement. So basically this select start from student. By name ichcham student ichcham employee ichcham. Select star from student. That's it. Why it is showing an error? I have to put the logic in a try catch. I have to put. So next, which statement we have to use? Which method we have to use? The prepared statement object dot execute query is a method. What is the return type of this method? Is equal to prepared statement dot execute query. So while rs dot next. So how many records are available? That may returns. This loop is going to be repeat. Created on student object. St dot. We created some methods. Next, set name of new student object, right? Every time we create a new student object, we are inserting the data into the. At somewhere we have to store all the student objects. Otherwise, what is the need for it? We inserted some data into a student object. What we are doing? We are creating one more student object. We are inserting the data. Next, we insert one more student object. We will insert the data. So now we are inserting the data into one object. We are inserting the data, right? And somewhere we have to store all these objects or not? Somewhere we have to store all these objects. So how to maintain some group of objects? How to maintain some group of objects? Collection. Okay. What's your class? So globally we'll create one array list. But which type of data we are inserting? Which type of data? Student data we are inserting. We are not inserting string data. We are inserting what? Student data we are inserting. Let us take student details. stu underscore is equals to new array list. So here, every time before going to read the next student data, we created one student object we created, right? Now we'll store this object into one student details dot add of st. The meaning of this statement is we created one new student object we created. We inserted the data into the student object. Before going to read the next student record, what we are doing? We are storing that one into one array list we are storing. So how many times this loop is going to be repeated? So that many objects will create, and we stored all the objects into one array list. Now all the list of student details are available where? In the array list. What is array list object name? Student details. If anyone is called this method, what is the return type we specified? Return type we specified is array list of student. So here at end we had a return. In place of null, we had to specify what? Student details. This is the implementation class. This is the implementation class. Now we had to create a client class. We had to create what? The client class. I told you, right? I'll show each and every class. First listen. So we'll create one class. We'll create now. Let us take test class. Let us take my class name is what? Test. Main method I created. Initially we'll see how to insert the data into database. If you want to insert the data into database, how to insert the data into database? For module 1, let us take is equal to, it's an interface, right? The implementation class for this. What is the implementation class? Student app module IMPL. Because you cannot not create an object for the insert student data. If you call this insert student, already written the logic, we insert the data into database. But what is the input parameter you have to pass for this one? What is the course? Let's say Java. We specify the details like. But now we had to create one object. We had to specify that object. There is a difference. Previously we specified individually. Now we'll create an object. We'll set the data into that object. We'll transfer that object. Okay. So here, create an object for student st is equals to new student st dot, we created some methods, right? sid, shall I give you s of 0? One line I had to give set s name args of so s name is also there. Set s name course from. So now directly we are not inserted the data. We are not passing the parameters. We inserted the data into an object. We inserted which object? The student object. So now for this method, the insert student data method, we had to specify the object. We had to specify the st object. What is the return type of this method? Insert student data method. What is the return type of this method? Int I is equal to module1 dot insert data. So write system dot out dot println now. Okay, so shall we test the application? So before we into test the application, first the table is not available. We had to create one table. Create table. What is the table name? Student. SID. It's a number type. And table is created. Okay. Next, another one is we had to specify that OJDBC connection. We had to that jar file, that API file. We had to specify for this student app. How to specify this one? Students app. Select properties. Java build path, add external jars. So OJDBC 14.jar. Add this jar file. Select OK. Okay. So we'll test this one. The test class will test. Select run as Java application. Array index out of bounds exception. Where? Array index out of bounds exception. Where was? student name I given, student ID given, name and course. If it is inserted, you will get 1. You will get. Okay. So one record is inserted in the database. So we'll insert one more record. Just run this one. Select run as Java application. Enter the data. Previously we inserted 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 4. This is 1. Okay. Done. I commented this. Now I want to read. You don't need to pass any input parameter. Automatically you will get the data from the student table. But what is the return type of this method? The return type of this method is array list of student. So here the return type of this method is a array list of student. Let us take student underscore list is equal to module1 dot read student data. So when you call this method, from this method you will get the list of student details. You will get. We store that list of student details into one stu underscore list object. It's array list, right? How to read the individual values? Shall we use for loop? So he's saying iterator, correct or not? We said about iterator, list iterator. Okay, so it's a list, right? So directly you can use. Best approach is you can use what? List iterator. So which type of data you are getting? Student data. So list iterator is equals to student underscore list dot. What is the method name? List iterator. What is the next one? While list iterator dot next. If it is true, then this block is going to be called. Next or what? Has next. If list iterator dot has next, if records are available in that list, then this block is going to be true. So here, the list iterator dot, what is the method name? Next is a method. But what is the return type you will get? When you call next method, what is the return type of this next method? Student object. What is the return type? Student object you will get. So when you call list iterator dot next, you will get which object? Student object you will get. Student st is equal to list iterator dot next. So we'll print the value from this one. System dot out dot println of st dot, what is the method name? Get sid. Next, get sname. Next, st dot get course. Okay, how many records are available? That many times this loop is going to be repeated. So we'll test the application. Run as Java application. See, we got two records we got here. 1, 2, 3 Mahesh Java and 1, 2, 4 Rajesh Android. Okay, so this is reading the data. Sir, is it necessary to write this much logic for inserting and reading? Come on, boss. Directly you can write in the single main method, you can write, right? Everything you can write here itself, you can write for creating, for inserting the data, for reading the data. I don't need to write this many classes. Directly in one single class in a main method, you can perform all these things. But that is not the right approach. Nursery people chese pane. You are not the nursery people, right? Correct or not? So here, this is the right approach to communicate with the databases. And previously you don't know core Java concepts. Now you know core Java concepts, you know. Correct or not? Okay, this is the right approach to perform the operations on DB. First, you have to create an interface. We have to create one implementation classes. And if you are passing any input parameters, we have to create a value object. We have to create a value object or DTO, data transfer object, for the same. If you have any input parameters, directly don't give the input parameters. Create one object for that one and give the data. Shall we test once again? Shall I explain once again? So input nodes రాసుకోండి. Okay. So what is the first one we created? We created one interface we created. So in this interface, not only here, if you have any operations if you want to perform, first what you have to do? You have to create one interface you have to create. So it is easy to describe other people. It is easy to describe the other people. For example, a technical person, if the technical person sees this one, easily can understand, okay, he is performing inserting data operation as well as reading data operation. What is the input parameter for inserting? He is passing on value object, he is passing for student. Okay, next here, what is the return type here? When you call read student data method, you will get multiple student records, you will get multiples, that's why you get one collection list. First, this is interface. So next one is one second. So here, next you have to create what? What are the input parameters? We are passing a value object or data transfer object. What are the input parameters you are giving or what are the data you are giving? So for this one we created what? A value object or data transfer object we created. Okay. So for this value object or data transfer object, we have to create one separate class we have to create. So what we are maintaining? We are maintaining one student details we are maintaining. Okay. So next we created one value object that is student. And best practice is apply private modifier for the variables. And one more thing, don't declare all the variables in a single line. Don't declare all the variables in a single line. Generally, we'll write string, name, quotes, next everything we'll write in a single line. But don't write separate. Declare separate. Write only one method, remaining things are C. You can put in square. same line. Okay. So what is the next one? You communicate. With that. Database. Complete అయిపోయిందా? Just only write. Interpersonal skills అంటే బయటికి ఎక్స్పోజ్ చేయలేను. నిజంగా నేను అవన్నీ నేర్చుకోవాలి బాస్. నిన్న మా టెస్ట్ అని ఒక మాట అన్నా అనమాట. అది ఎంతవరకు వెళ్ళిందంటే ఈవెన్ సిఇఓ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళింది. అది ఒకటే మాట ఏమన్నా అంటే కోపం వచ్చేసింది బాగా. యూ గైస్ డోంట్ నో హౌ టు డూ ద మొబైల్ టెస్టింగ్ అన్న. యూ గైస్ డోంట్ నో హౌ టు డూ ద మొబైల్ టెస్టింగ్ అన్న. ఆ వర్డ్ ఎంతవరకు వెళ్ళిందంటే సిఇఓ దాకా వెళ్ళింది అనమాట. సో హీ కాల్డ్ మీ, he asked me the explanation. I also given the explanation. Generally you will get some messages, right? For example, if you want to delete any record, if you want to delete, when you click delete button you will get some message. Are you sure want to delete? Yes button and no button. Correct or not? When you click yes, delete. When you click no, just dismiss the dialog box. That's it. What is the bug, you know? Yes should be in the right side, no should be in the left side. Yes రైట్ సైడే ఉండాలంటే నో లెఫ్ట్ సైడే ఉండాలంట. ఇది బగ్ బాస్. మీకు ఎలా ఉంటుంది చెప్పండి. ఐ ఆస్క్డ్ ఎ క్వశ్చన్, హూ సెడ్ ఎస్ షుడ్ బి ఇన్ రైట్ సైడ్ అండ్ నో షుడ్ బి ఇన్ లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్? ఎక్కడైనా రూల్ ఉందా చెప్పండి, ఎస్ అనేది రైట్ సైడే ఉండాలి, నో అనేది లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్ ఉండాలని చెప్పేసి? కరెక్ట్ ఆర్ నాట్? ఐ గివెన్ ఓన్లీ వన్ ఎక్స్ప్లెనేషన్ టు మై ప్రాజెక్ట్ మేనేజర్స్ అండ్ హైయర్ అథారిటీ. సి అండ్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ నేను లీడ్ చేసే ప్రాజెక్ట్ లో ఒక 500 మొబైల్ స్క్రీన్స్ ఉంటాయి బాస్. 500 స్క్రీన్స్, నాట్ ఓన్లీ 1 or 2 స్క్రీన్స్. వాట్సాప్ తీసుకుంటే హార్డ్లీ ఎన్ని స్క్రీన్స్ ఉంటాయి మీకు? మహా అంటే మాక్సిమం 10 స్క్రీన్స్ అనుకోండి బాస్. ఇఫ్ యూ టేక్ ఎనీ అదర్ అప్లికేషన్, హార్డ్లీ హౌ మెనీ స్క్రీన్స్ యూ విల్ గెట్? మాక్సిమం 20. ఇన్ మై ప్రాజెక్ట్ దర్ ఆర్ 500 స్క్రీన్స్ బాస్. ఆ 500 స్క్రీన్స్ మెయింటైన్ చేయాలి. ఎక్కడ ఏ ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది అసలు ఎక్కడ ఒక బగ్ వచ్చింది అనుకోండి, నియర్లీ ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఆల్ 10,000 ప్లస్ క్లాసెస్. ప్రతిదానికి ఇట్లే ఉంటాయి. ఒక పోజో క్లాస్ ఉంటుంది, ఒక ఇంప్లిమెంటేషన్ క్లాస్ ఉంటుంది, ఒక వాల్యూ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఉంటుంది ప్రతిదానికి. ఇట్స్ మోర్ దాన్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఆల్ 10,000 క్లాసెస్. I had to concentrate on those things or I had to concentrate on the silly things? This is a question I asked boss. He also said, okay, that's not your problem. Okay, this is a silly issue, right? Who said yes should be right side, no should be left side? Correct or not? So I am leading the entire project boss. నేను ఇప్పుడు వెళ్ళిపోయాను అనుకోండి, they had to close the project because A to Z I know. వేరే వాడు వచ్చి ఆ ప్రాజెక్ట్ని అండర్స్టాండ్ చేసుకోవడానికి మినిమం 6 నెలలు పడుతుంది మళ్ళీ దాన్ని. కరెక్ట్ ఆర్ నాట్? సో దట్స్ వై ఐ టోల్డ్ దట్ you guys don't know how to do the mobile testing. ఇప్పుడు ఎట్లా చూస్తున్నారంటే టెస్టర్స్ అంతా ఒక విలన్ లాగా చూస్తున్నారు బాస్. So I had to learn all these things. Transparent, open-minded, next, approachable. Okay. ఒక మాట అంటే అయిపోద్ది కదా, సరే ప్లేస్ చేస్తాం చూస్తాను సార్ అంటే ఒక మాట అంటే అయిపోద్ది. Where we had to create one value object. We had to create. Next, we had to communicate with the database, right? We had to communicate with the database. We had to communicate. To communicate with the database, the problem is don't create an individual connection object for each and every request. Don't create a separate or individual connection object for every request. Correct or not? For example, now we are using only one system bus. Let us take within 2 to 3 days we'll learn advanced Java. So multiple persons can access that page or not. So at that time, for each and every request, it will create a connection object. So maximum it will say, sir, up to 1000 requests was. If it is more than 1000 requests, the database cannot create that connection object because the database is having the maximum connection objects of 1000. More than 1000 connection objects you cannot create. So at that time, I don't want to create a separate connection object for every time. How many connection objects? Only one connection object will create. So that's why we created one class called DB connection. In this DB connection class, mainly we return the logic, the database connection logic written here in the DB connection. And one more advantage with this one is, for example, further I want to change my database. If you want to change the database, have you remember? If you want to change the database, you have to change it in only 2 places. Where is the 2 places? The class.forName and get connection. Only you have to make change in only this class. I told you that in my project there are 10,000 classes are there. Further, I want to migrate my database. If you want to migrate the database, I don't need to change in all the places. Where I will change? Only the DB connection. Individually, if you write all the classes separate the database connection, it's very difficult in future if you want to migrate. So that's why we did. So further, if you want to change, only change the database connection logic in the DB connection class. And to get the database connection object, what is the logic written? Initially, connection is equal to what? Null. If connection object is null, then only create a connection object and return the connection object. From the second time onwards, from second request onwards, you don't need to create a separate connection object. You don't need to create a separate connection object. You need to create. అంటే ప్రతిసారి ఇండివిజువల్ గా ఏదైనా కొత్త ఆపరేషన్ పర్ఫామ్ చేస్తున్నారు అనుకోండి, దెన్ క్రియేట్ న్యూ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. మనం ప్రీవియస్ ఏం చేసాం, ప్రతిసారి ఒక న్యూ స్టూడెంట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేసాం. ఎందుకు? ప్రతి స్టూడెంట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ లో సపరేట్ వాల్యూస్ మెయింటైన్ చేసుకోవాలి. కరెక్ట్ అవునా? ప్రతి స్టూడెంట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ లో ఇండిపెండెంట్ గా సపరేట్ వాల్యూస్ మెయింటైన్ చేయాలి. సో that's why we created a separate object we created. But here this connect మీరు 1000 objects create చేసినా 10,000 just to connect with a database. That's it. A common operation for all the requests or not? Yes. So that's why you don't need to create a separate object. One object is sufficient. So from second time onwards, when you make a request, only just give this object. Completed? అయిపోయిందా బాస్? So what is the next one? Implementation class we have to write students app module IMPL. So this is the implementation class. So our main logic is we written in the implementation class only. Our main logic we written in the implementation class. Provide the implementation for the two abstract methods what you created. Same application in our advanced Java also. At that time, which one is going to be changed? Or test class. Or client class is there, right? Test class. Only that part is going to be changed. At that time, I will not write once again the student, these DB classes, the Ojo classes, everything I will not write. Just simply I will copy those classes. I will put all the classes in my web application. Only I will change which class? Test class I will change. Here the front end is a normal core Java program. There the front end is HTML. From HTML will communicate with that. Directly will communicate with this class. Students have all inside of here. Okay. This is for inserting. Next we have one more thing for reading. భార్గవ్ రాస్తున్నా మైండ్లో స్టోర్ చేస్తున్నా రాస్తున్నా is only the task for you. I need an output in each and every machine. Everyone is having Eclipse, right? Everyone is having MySQL, right? MySQL, if you don't have any software, take Oracle. Or Oracle software is there. Right? Okay. So install the software. In every machine, I need this. And from tomorrow session onwards, I'll come in the morning. From tomorrow onwards, I'll come in the morning. So I have a lot of time. Okay. So I'll test that. Then definitely I'll test each and every machine. It's not for my purpose, bros. It's for you only. Because for further examples, you cannot understand. You don't understand this example. Okay. Completed? Completed or not, boss? We have one more class, right? What is that one? Test class. I use the same example for advanced Java also. For servlets and JSP also, I use the same example. Only the test class is going to be changed. That's it. Okay. Completed. So next, test class. At the time of import statements, at the time of import, just import the correct classes. Because if we take connection, we have in six packages we have connection class. In case of statement, we have in 3 places. Okay, so import the correct classes. Java.sql, connection, statement, and all the classes. This is the first logic for inserting the data. Next, after the next one, for reading the data. క్లాస్ అయిపోయాక ఎంత ఉంది అనుకుంటారు? నాకేం అర్థం అవ్వలేదండి. ఎంత ఉంది అనుకుంటారు బాస్? హ్యాండ్స్ రైజ్ చేయండి ఒకసారి. నాకేం అర్థం అవ్వలేదని చెప్పేసి. 1 2 3 4 5 నెక్స్ట్. ట్రాన్స్పరెంట్ గా ఉన్నారు బాస్. కరెక్ట్ ఉన్నాడు. స్పోకెన్ ఇంగ్లీష్ క్లాస్ మీకు బాగా అర్థమవుతున్నట్టున్నాయి బాస్ కదా. స్పోకెన్ ఇంగ్లీషా సాఫ్ట్ స్కిల్సా? సాఫ్ట్ స్కిల్స్ కదా. 2 ఒకటే లేండి ఆల్మోస్ట్. అంతేనా?